At 11:42 a.m. on March 18th, I was standing beside my grandmother's casket with a white rose in my hand when my phone buzzed. I almost ignored it. The church smelled like old wood, lilies, and rain-soaked coats. My grandmother, the only person in my family who had ever made me feel chosen, was lying 10 feet away from me in the same navy dress she used to wear to Sunday dinners. My mother was in the front pew crying loudly into a handkerchief. My father sat beside her, staring straight ahead like grief was something that embarrassed him. Then my phone buzzed again. It was a text from my neighbor, Mr. Callahan. "Emma, why is there a sold sign in your grandma's yard?" For a second I thought I had read it wrong. I stepped behind one of the stone pillars near the side aisle, my fingers cold around the phone. I opened the picture he sent. There it was. My grandmother's little yellow house on Maple Ridge Lane. The porch swing still hanging crooked. The blue hydrangeas she had planted when I was 12. The kitchen window where she used to wave to me after school. And in the front yard, stabbed into the grass like a knife, was a red and white sign. Sold. My knees almost gave out. I looked across the church at my mother. She was still dabbing her eyes, still accepting sympathy from relatives, still playing the grieving daughter. My father's hand was resting over hers. My brother Ryan sat beside them, scrolling on his phone under the program, bored at his own grandmother's funeral. I remember gripping the pillar so hard my nails scraped against the stone. Because nobody had told me the house was for sale. Nobody had asked me. Nobody had even mentioned it. And the worst part was not the sign. The worst part was that my grandmother had begged me, 3 weeks before she died, to promise her one thing. "Emma," she whispered from her hospital bed, her fingers thin and papery around mine, "don't let them take the house. That house knows your name." At the time I thought she was confused from the medication. I smiled through tears and told her, "I won't, Grandma." She squeezed my hand once. Hard. Like she needed me to understand something I didn't. Now, standing in the church while my family mourned for an audience, I finally understood one part. They had waited until she was dead. They had waited until I was distracted. They had waited until I was standing beside her casket. And while I was saying goodbye to the woman who raised me more than my own parents ever did, my parents had sold the only place where I had ever felt safe. I turned my phone over in my hand. Then another message came through. This one was from an unknown number. "Hi Emma. I'm the buyer. Your mother said you already moved out your things. We take possession tomorrow at 9 a.m. Tomorrow. At 9 a.m. I looked up at my mother again. She must have felt my stare because her eyes flicked toward me. For half a second the crying stopped. No tears. No grief. No softness. Just warning. Then she mouthed one word from across the aisle. "Don't." And that was when I realized my grandmother's funeral was not the end of the story. It was the crime scene. And the house was not the only thing my parents had stolen. 2. Before everything broke. My name is Emma Whitaker, and I was 31 years old when my grandmother died. At the time, I worked as a pediatric occupational therapist in a children's hospital outside Bristol. It was the kind of job people called meaningful, when they didn't know how exhausting it was. I spent my days helping children relearn how to hold spoons, stack blocks, walk after surgeries, and trust their own bodies again. I was good at helping other people rebuild. I was not good at admitting that I had spent most of my own life trying to rebuild from my family. My grandmother, Ruth Whitaker, was my safe place. Not in a poetic way. In a literal way. When my parents forgot to pick me up from school, Grandma came. When my mother said I was too sensitive, Grandma sat me at her kitchen table and made cinnamon toast. When my father missed my graduation because Ryan had a football banquet, Grandma sat in the front row and clapped so loudly the principal laughed. And when I got my first hospital job, she handed me a key to her house. "This is not a spare," she told me. "This is yours. Any hour. Any weather. Any reason." That was how Grandma loved. Practical. Quiet. Steady. Her house on Maple Ridge Lane was small. 2 bedrooms, a narrow hallway, creaky stairs, and a kitchen with yellow curtains that had faded almost white from the sun. But to me it felt like a kingdom. Every wall had a memory. The dent near the pantry was from the time I tried to carry a Christmas tree by myself when I was 14. The burn mark on the kitchen counter was from Grandma setting down a hot pan while teaching me how to make apple crumble. The tiny pencil lines on the inside of the laundry room door marked my height every year from age 6 to 18. My mother hated those lines. She lets you cling to childhood, she used to say. That's why you're so dramatic. But Grandma never erased them. She once told me, some children need proof they were allowed to grow. That sentence stayed with me longer than any birthday gift. My parents lived 20 minutes away in a newer house with white walls, glass tables, and no photographs unless they matched the room. My mother, Linda, cared about appearances the way some people cared about oxygen. Her hair was never out of place. Her smile switched on when people entered the room. Her voice softened around strangers and sharpened around me. My father, Alan, was quieter. Not kinder. Just quieter. He had perfected the art of saying nothing while my mother said everything. And then there was my brother Ryan. 2 years younger than me. Golden child. Family investment. Walking excuse. If Ryan failed a class, he was under pressure. If I got a B, I lacked discipline. If Ryan borrowed money and forgot to repay it, he was figuring life out. If I asked for help with textbooks, I was entitled. By 31, I had stopped expecting fairness. But I still expected one thing. I expected them to leave Grandma's house alone. Because that house was not just property. It was where she taught me that love could be quiet and still be real. It was where I slept the night my mother told me at 16 that I ruined every family photo by looking miserable. It was where Grandma held my face in both hands and said, "You are not hard to love. They are hard to satisfy." So when she got sick, I became the one who took her to appointments. I organized her medication. I changed her sheets. I sat through the long hospital nights when the machines beeped and her breathing turned shallow. My parents visited when people were watching. Ryan came once and asked if the house had gone up much in value. Grandma heard him. She closed her eyes like something inside her had finally settled into disappointment. That was 3 weeks before the funeral. The same day she made me promise not to let them take the house. And the same day I later learned she had already done something about it. 3. The family favorite. The thing about being the unfavored child is that nobody announces it. There is no ceremony. No one sits you down and says, "Your brother will get grace and you will get criticism." You learn it in small moments. You learn it when your mother saves the bigger slice of cake without thinking. You learn it when your father says, "Don't start," before you have even spoken. You learn it when your brother breaks something and everyone looks at you for reacting. In our house, Ryan was not just loved. He was protected from consequence. My mother called him our bright one. Even after he dropped out of university twice. She called him business-minded. Even after 3 failed ideas funded by my father's savings. She called him sensitive, which was strange, because Ryan's sensitivity usually looked like shouting until everyone gave him what he wanted. When I was 24, Ryan borrowed £3,000 from Grandma to start a fitness supplement brand. It lasted 4 months. When Grandma asked him gently about repayment, my mother snapped, "He's family, Mom. Don't humiliate him over money." 3 weeks later, I asked my parents if they could help me replace my car after the transmission failed. My mother looked at me over her coffee and said, "At some point, Emma, you need to stop expecting rescue." That was the family rule. Ryan received support. I received lessons. At Sunday dinners, the pattern was so familiar I could have performed it from memory. Ryan arrived late. My mother hugged him like he had returned from war. My father asked about his plans. Ryan used words like investment, networking, and cash flow, though he had none of those things. Then my mother would glance at me and say something like, "Emma, are you still doing that therapy job? It must be emotionally draining for everyone around you." Grandma would put down her fork. "She helps children, Linda." My mother would smile tightly. "Yes, Mom. We know. Emma is very noble." That word. Noble. She used it like an insult. Grandma's house became the only place where I did not have to defend my existence. On Fridays after work, I would bring groceries and cook dinner with her. She moved slowly in her last years, but her mind stayed sharp. She knew who avoided visiting. She knew who called only when they wanted something. She knew my mother had begun asking too many questions about property taxes and insurance documents. One night, while I was washing dishes, Grandma sat at the table with her tea untouched. "Your mother asked where I keep my deed," she said. I turned off the tap. What? She said she was helping me organize papers. I dried my hands slowly. Did you tell her? Grandma looked toward the dark window over the sink. I told her old women keep secrets for a reason. I tried to laugh, but she did not. Grandma, I said. Do you think they're trying to do something? She folded her hands. Her knuckles were swollen from arthritis. I think your mother believes grief is easier when there is money at the end of it. That sentence made my stomach tighten. But then she smiled faintly and changed the subject, asking if I had eaten enough that day. That was Grandma too. She could name a danger and then hand you a biscuit. In the last 6 months of her life, my parents became strangely attentive. My mother started dropping by with flowers. Ryan suddenly offered to mow the lawn. My father asked if Grandma had updated everything properly. They acted like concern had bloomed overnight. But every visit ended with paperwork. Insurance folders, bank statements, utility bills, property valuation letters. And whenever I entered the room, the conversation changed. Once I walked into the sitting room and heard Ryan say, "If Emma gets emotional, just don't tell her until it's done." My mother hissed, "Lower your voice." I stood in the doorway with the laundry basket against my hip. "Tell me what?" Ryan leaned back like I was boring him. "Relax. Not everything is about you." Grandma from her recliner looked at me. Her face was tired, but her eyes were clear. Later that night, when my parents had left, she called me to her bedside. "If they ever make you feel crazy," she whispered, "look for paper. People lie. Paper remembers." I kissed her forehead and told her not to worry. But she looked past me toward the hallway, toward the framed photo of me at 18 in my graduation gown. "I am not worried," she said. "I am preparing." At the time I did not understand. I thought she meant emotionally. I did not know she meant legally. 4. The betrayal. 2 days after Grandma died, my mother called a family meeting. Not at her house. At Grandma's. That should have warned me. I arrived at 6 p.m. with a casserole from one of Grandma's neighbors still warm in my passenger seat. The porch light was off, even though Grandma always kept it on after sunset. Inside, the house felt wrong. Not empty exactly. Watched. My parents were sitting at the kitchen table. Ryan leaned against the counter, eating grapes from a bowl Grandma had always used for Christmas sweets. There was a folder on the table. My mother did not stand up when I came in. "We need to discuss the house," she said. I set the casserole down carefully. "Can we bury Grandma first?" My father rubbed his forehead. "Emma, don't make this difficult." That was his role. He never started the fire. He just blamed me for smelling smoke. Ryan popped another grape into his mouth. "The market is hot right now. Waiting is stupid." I stared at him. "This is Grandma's home." "No," my mother said. "It was Mum's house. Now it's an asset." The word landed like a slap. An asset. Not the porch where Grandma shelled peas in summer. Not the kitchen where she taught me to knead dough. Not the bedroom where she died with my hand around hers. An asset. My mother opened the folder and slid a paper toward me. "We've had an offer." My ears rang. "What do you mean, an offer?" "A private buyer," she said. "No need for a long listing. No strangers walking through. Clean and fast." I looked from her to my father. "You put the house up for sale?" Ryan laughed under his breath. "Don't be dramatic. It's not like you own it." Something in my chest went cold. My mother tapped the paper. "We need you to sign that you won't contest the sale." I did not touch it. "Why would I contest it?" Her eyes sharpened. "Because you have always had an unhealthy attachment to this place." I looked at my father. "Dad." He would not meet my eyes. "It's just a formality," he muttered. "No," I said. "It's not." My mother's face changed. The public softness disappeared. "Emma, your grandmother spoiled you. She let you believe sentiment pays bills. It doesn't. She just died. And we are the ones left handling reality." I could feel my throat closing, but I forced myself to stay calm. "Did Grandma have a will?" My mother's hand stilled. Ryan looked at the floor. My father said, too quickly, "We haven't found one." That was the first lie I could prove later. But in that moment all I had was instinct. "I'm not signing anything," I said. My mother leaned back slowly. Then she smiled. Not kindly, pityingly. You always do this, she said. You turn every family decision into a performance. I'm asking a question. No, Emma. You're making grief about control. Ryan snorted. She thinks because Grandma gave her a key, she gets the house. I looked at him. You asked Grandma about the value while she was dying. His face flushed. My mother stood so fast the chair scraped the floor. That is enough. Then she said the sentence I never forgot. You were her hobby, Emma. We are her family. The kitchen went silent. Even Ryan stopped chewing. I remember looking at the yellow curtains moving slightly from the draft near the window. I remember the casserole cooling on the counter. I remember thinking that if Grandma had been there, she would have said my name softly. But Grandma was gone. And for the first time I understood exactly how brave she had been to love me in that family. I picked up my bag. My mother's voice followed me to the door. If you walk out now, don't come crying when decisions are made without you. I turned back. You've been making decisions without me my whole life. Then I left. But by then they had already started. 5. The moment I stopped begging. The funeral was 4 days later. By then my family had turned me into the problem. In the family group chat my mother wrote, Emma is struggling emotionally and making the house situation more painful than necessary. My Aunt Carol replied with praying hands. Ryan wrote, she thinks she deserves everything because she visited Grandma more. I typed 3 different responses and deleted all of them. What could I say? That visiting a dying woman was not a strategy? That love was not a receipt? That I was tired of being called greedy by people who were selling a dead woman's home before the flowers from her hospital room had wilted? Instead, I drove to Grandma's house the night before the funeral. I parked across the street because there was a black car in the driveway I did not recognize. Through the front window, I saw my mother speaking to a woman in a camel coat. A man in a suit walked around the sitting room taking pictures on his phone. My stomach dropped. A realtor. I got out of my car and crossed the street so fast I barely checked for traffic. The front door was unlocked. I stepped inside and heard my mother say, the furniture will be cleared by tomorrow evening. Tomorrow, I said. Everyone turned. My mother's eyes widened then narrowed. The woman in the camel coat gave me a professional smile. You must be Emma. I looked at my mother. Who is this? The woman stepped forward. I'm Claire Hensley. I'm handling the transaction. What transaction? My mother laughed lightly, the way she did when pretending I was embarrassing her. Emma, not now. I walked farther into the room. The man in the suit was standing beside Grandma's bookshelf, the one with her old church cookbooks and my childhood drawings still tucked between them. Stop taking pictures, I said. He lowered the phone. Ryan appeared from the hallway carrying a cardboard box. Inside were Grandma's framed photos. One of them was mine. Me at 8 years old missing 2 front teeth, sitting on Grandma's porch with a bowl of strawberries. What are you doing? I asked. Ryan shrugged. Clearing clutter. I crossed the room and took the frame from the box. He rolled his eyes. Fine. Take your shrine. The realtor looked uncomfortable. My mother did not. She walked close enough that only I could hear her. You are not going to sabotage this because you can't let go. I whispered. Grandma isn't even buried. Her face hardened. And whose fault is that? You insisted on the church service, the flowers, the program. Drama, drama, drama. I stared at her. I had not arranged the funeral for drama. I had arranged it because Grandma sang in that church choir for 42 years. My father entered from the back door carrying trash bags. He saw me inside. That sigh almost broke me. Not anger. Not guilt. Just inconvenience. Like I was a spill on the floor. Please, I said, and I hated how small my voice sounded. Can we slow down? Can we at least wait until after tomorrow? My father looked at my mother. My mother looked at Ryan. Ryan checked his watch. No one looked at me like I was grieving too. Then Ryan said, the buyer wants possession quickly. We already accepted the deposit. The room tilted. You accepted money? My mother said, earnest money. And before you start, it's perfectly legal. The realtor's face changed slightly. That tiny change mattered later. At the time, I only noticed because it was the first sign that someone outside my family felt uneasy. I turned to Claire. Have you seen proof they can sell this house? My mother snapped. Emma. Claire hesitated. I received documentation from Mrs. Whitaker's next of kin. Which Mrs. Whitaker? I asked. My mother's cheeks reddened. My mother is gone, she said. I am her daughter. And I'm asking if you saw the deed. Silence. Not ordinary silence. The kind that made the clock above the stove sound too loud. Claire looked at my mother. Linda, perhaps we should pause until. No, my mother said. We are not pausing because my daughter is unstable. There it was. The word she used when she wanted people to stop listening to me. Unstable. She said it louder this time for the realtor, for the man in the suit, for my father, for Ryan. She has always been like this, my mother continued. Obsessive. Emotional. Attached to things that aren't hers. Something inside me cracked. But it did not shatter. It went quiet. I looked at the box in Ryan's hands. I looked at Grandma's photo. I looked at the yellow curtains, the pencil marks on the laundry room door, the life they were trying to pack into trash bags. Then I stopped begging. I turned to Claire and asked calmly, May I have your card? My mother blinked. Claire handed it to me. My father frowned. Emma, what are you doing? I put the card in my coat pocket. I'm done asking people who lied to explain the truth. My mother laughed once. And what does that mean? I looked at her. It means by the time you understand what Grandma did, it'll be too late. For the first time all night, my mother had nothing to say. I walked out with the framed photo under my arm. And I did not cry until I reached the car. But when I did, it was not the same crying as before. It was grief, yes. But underneath it was something else. A thin, steady line of anger. Not loud. Not reckless. Useful. 6. What they didn't know. The next morning, before the funeral, I went to see Grandma's solicitor. His office was above a pharmacy on a narrow street downtown. The sign on the door read Martin Vale, Wills and Probate in gold letters that had started to peel at the edges. I had only met Mr. Vale once before. Grandma had introduced us 6 months earlier and said, If anything happens, Emma knows where to come. I thought she meant the will. I did not know she meant the deed. Mr. Vale was in his late 60s. With silver eyebrows and a voice so calm it made you lower yours without realizing. When I told him about the sold sign, the realtor, the pressure to sign, and the buyer taking possession tomorrow, he did not interrupt. He just opened a blue folder. Then he said, Your grandmother expected this. My hands went numb. What? He took out a document sealed in a clear sleeve. Ruth transferred the property 9 months ago. To who? He looked at me gently. To you. The room went silent. I stared at the paper. My name was there. Emma Claire Whitaker. The legal words blurred at first. Transfer. Registered. Life interest. Sole remainder owner. Mr. Vale explained it slowly. Grandma had signed and recorded a deed transferring the house to me, while reserving the right to live there for the rest of her life. It meant she stayed in her home until she died. And after she passed, the house was mine. Not my mother's. Not my father's. Not Ryan's. Mine. I pressed my hand over my mouth. She never told me. She wanted to, he said. But she was afraid your mother would pressure you. Ruth believed silence would protect you until paper could. Then he handed me an envelope. My name was written on it in Grandma's handwriting. The sight of it almost undid me. I opened it with shaking fingers. Inside was a letter. If you are reading this, it means I am gone and they have started. I am sorry I could not give you a softer family. I tried to give you a safer place instead. I stopped reading because my eyes filled too quickly. Mr. Vale waited. When I could breathe again, I continued. The house is yours. Not because you earned love by taking care of me. Love is not wages. It is yours because it was always the place where you were allowed to be whole. Your mother will call you selfish. Your father will call you difficult. Ryan will call you greedy. Let them. The truth was filed before the lies began. People lie. Paper remembers. I held the letter against my chest. For a moment I was back in her kitchen, hearing her say it. People lie. Paper remembers. Mr. Vale slid another document across the desk. This is the registered deed. This is the certified copy. I also have correspondence from your grandmother regarding her concerns about undue pressure. I looked up. What concerns? He hesitated, then opened another section of the folder. There were printed emails, messages from Grandma, notes about my mother asking for documents, Ryan asking about value, my father pressuring her to simplify things. Then there was a police report. My breath caught. Why is there a police report? Not filed as a criminal complaint, Mr. Vale said. A welfare concern. Your grandmother asked that it be documented after Ryan tried to remove a box of financial papers from the house. I remembered that day. Ryan had said he was helping organize. Grandma had looked pale afterward. Mr. Vale's voice softened. There is more. He turned his computer monitor slightly. Security footage. From the small camera Grandma had installed above the back porch after a break-in scare 2 years earlier. The footage showed Ryan entering the house 3 days after Grandma died with my mother. He was carrying folders out to his car. Another clip showed my father removing a lockbox from the upstairs wardrobe. My voice came out barely above a whisper. They knew. They knew enough to hide what they were doing, Mr. Vale said. I looked at the time. The funeral began in 50 minutes. My family was already at the church, probably accepting condolences beside Grandma's casket while believing they had one. Can we stop the sale? I asked. Mr. Vale's expression changed. We can do more than stop it. He picked up the phone. By the time I left his office, 3 things had happened. A legal notice had been emailed to the realtor. A warning had been sent to the buyer's solicitor. And Mr. Vale had agreed to attend the memorial lunch after the burial, where my mother had invited half the family to Grandma's favorite restaurant. I asked him why he would come in person. He put the blue folder into his leather briefcase. Because your grandmother asked me to. I looked at him. He paused at the doorway. She said, when they gather everyone to tell their version, I want Emma to have someone who brought the truth. That was when I started crying again. But this time I was not alone. 7. The reveal. The funeral service passed like a dream I was watching from the wrong side of glass. My mother cried at the exact moments people looked at her. Ryan checked his phone twice during the hymn. My father gave a short speech about family unity and honoring Ruth's wishes, which would have been funny if my chest had not hurt so badly. I sat in the second pew, holding Grandma's letter inside my coat pocket. When the pastor said, Ruth believed home was a place of welcome, my mother reached for my hand. For the audience. I let her take it. Her fingers were cold and dry. She squeezed once hard enough to warn me. I did not look at her. At the cemetery, rain misted over the grass. The ground was soft beneath my heels. My aunt cried quietly. Mr. Callahan, Grandma's neighbor, stood under a black umbrella near the back. After the final prayer, people hugged my mother. You were such a devoted daughter, someone said. My mother lowered her eyes. She was my whole world. I almost laughed. Instead, I watched mud collect on the edge of Grandma's casket and thought about the sold sign in her yard. The memorial lunch was held at Bellamy's, a family restaurant with private rooms and white tablecloths. Grandma loved their lemon pie. She used to say their coffee was terrible but honest. There were 38 people there. Aunts, cousins, neighbors, church friends, my parents' acquaintances, even Claire the realtor, who arrived late and stood near the doorway looking like she wished she had stayed in her car. My mother had arranged framed photos on a table near the front. Most of them were of Ryan. Ryan as a baby on Grandma's lap. Ryan at Christmas. Ryan at graduation, though he had not graduated from that program. Ryan smiling beside Grandma at a barbecue. He left 20 minutes after the picture was taken. There were 2 photos of me. One was blurry. The other had been cropped so that Grandma's arm around me was barely visible. That small cruelty landed harder than I expected. Not because I needed a photo table to prove love, but because even in death my mother was editing the story. After everyone ate, my father stood and tapped his glass with a fork. The room quieted. I just want to thank everyone for coming, he said. Ruth valued family above all else. We are committed to handling her affairs with dignity and unity. My mother dabbed her eyes. Ryan looked smug. I knew then. They were going to announce the sale. My father continued. As many of you know, Ruth's home had become too much to maintain. Linda, Ryan, And I have made the difficult but practical decision to sell the property quickly so the family can move forward without conflict. A few relatives nodded. My Aunt Carol looked at me with pity. My mother stood beside my father and placed a hand over her chest. "We know Emma has struggled with this," she said softly. "She had a special attachment to the house. But grief can make people confused about what is fair." There it was. The performance. The gentle voice. The concerned face. The public framing. She was not attacking me. She was pitying me in front of everyone. That was worse. Ryan leaned back in his chair and said loudly enough for nearby tables to hear, "Grandma wouldn't want drama over bricks." A few people shifted uncomfortably. My mother gave him a warning glance, but she did not correct him. I sat very still. My cousin Beth leaned toward me and whispered, "Are you okay?" I nodded once. But inside my heart was hitting my ribs so hard I could feel it in my throat. Then my mother looked directly at me. "Emma," she said, "perhaps now would be a good time for you to tell everyone you support the family's decision." The room turned. 38 faces. 38 versions of curiosity, pity, judgment, confusion. For a moment I was 16 again, standing in the kitchen while my mother told relatives I was having one of my episodes, because I cried after she forgot my birthday. My hands trembled under the table. Then I felt the envelope in my coat pocket. Grandma's handwriting. I stood. The chair legs scraped against the floor. My mother's eyes flashed. "Emma," she said quietly, "think carefully." I did. I thought about Grandma's hospital bed. I thought about the lockbox. I thought about the sold sign. I thought about every time I had swallowed the truth to make the room more comfortable for people who were choking me with lies. Then I said, "I have thought carefully." My voice was not loud, but it carried. "I don't support the sale." My mother exhaled like she was disappointed but not surprised. "Everyone, please forgive her. This is grief talking." "No," I said. "This is the deed talking." The room went still. My mother blinked. Ryan's smile faded. At the back of the room, Mr. Vale stepped forward with his leather briefcase. My father's face changed first. Not guilt. Recognition. He knew exactly who Mr. Vale was. My mother whispered, "What is he doing here?" Mr. Vale walked to the front slowly. "Mrs. Whitaker," he said, "I was invited by Ruth." A murmur moved through the room. My mother gave a short laugh. "My mother is dead." "Yes," he said. "But her instructions are not." That was the first moment of shock. Real silence. No forks. No glasses. No whispers. Just my mother staring at the man who had brought the paper she thought she could outrun. Ryan stood. "This is ridiculous." Mr. Vale opened the briefcase. "I'll be brief," he said. The property on Maple Ridge Lane was legally transferred by Ruth Whitaker 9 months prior to her passing. The deed was registered. Ruth retained a life interest. Upon her death, full ownership passed to Emma Claire Whitaker. My aunt gasped. Someone whispered, "What?" My mother's face drained of color. Ryan laughed again, but it came out wrong. "No, that's not possible." Mr. Vale placed the certified copy on the table. "It is not only possible. It is recorded." Claire the realtor covered her mouth with one hand. My father sat down slowly. My mother stayed standing. "That can't be valid," she said. Mum was confused. She was elderly. Mr. Vale looked at her over his glasses. "I met with your mother multiple times. Her capacity was assessed. She was very clear. She would never cut out her own daughter," my mother snapped. I looked at her then. Really looked. All my life, I had waited for her face to soften, for guilt to appear, for love to interrupt her pride. It never did. So I stopped waiting. "She didn't cut you out," I said. "She protected me from you." My mother flinched like I had slapped her. Ryan pointed at me. "You manipulated her." My voice shook, but I did not sit down. I drove her to chemo. I changed her sheets. I held the basin when she was sick. I slept in a chair beside her bed while you asked where she kept the deed. Ryan stepped toward me. "You think being a nursemaid earns you a house?" Mr. Vale said sharply. "Mr. Whitaker." Ryan ignored him. "You always do this," he said. "Poor Emma. Saint Emma." You made Grandma feel sorry for you. Something in me went calm. I reached into my coat and took out Grandma's letter. She didn't feel sorry for me, I said. She saw me. My mother's lips parted. I unfolded the letter. I did not read all of it. Some words were mine. But I read one part. I am sorry I could not give you a softer family. I tried to give you a safer place instead. Nobody moved. My Aunt Carol started crying. My father stared at the table. Ryan looked away. My mother whispered, "That's private." I looked at her. So was selling her house during her funeral. Another silence. This one was heavier. Mr. Vale removed another stack of papers. There is also the matter of the attempted sale. The realtor and buyer's solicitor have both been notified that Linda and Ellen Whitaker had no legal authority to sell the property. Any representation otherwise may constitute fraud. Claire spoke from the doorway, her voice shaking. I asked for confirmation. Linda told me probate was straightforward and all heirs agreed. My mother spun toward her. You said this would be discreet. The room heard it. Every word. Discreet. Not legal. Not fair. Discreet. Ryan said. Mom, stop talking. But it was too late. By morning, people would repeat that word in every corner of the family. Mr. Vale looked at my father. Additionally, we have security footage showing removal of documents from the property after Ruth's death. My father closed his eyes. My mother said, "We were organizing." I turned to her. "You took the lockbox from her wardrobe." A cousin whispered, "Oh my God." Ryan slammed his hand on the table. "This is insane. She's making us look like criminals over a house." "No," I said quietly. "You did that when you sold something that wasn't yours." He stared at me with pure hatred. For once it did not scare me. Mr. Vale handed me one final page. I knew what it was. The cease and desist notice. The formal demand for return of all documents, keys, and personal property. My mother looked around the room, searching for support. She found faces turned away. Aunt Carol wiped her eyes but did not defend her. Mr. Callahan, who had come as Grandma's neighbor, stood near the back with his arms crossed. Then he said, "Ruth told me she was afraid they'd do this." My mother's head snapped toward him. He did not look away. "She asked me to keep an eye on the house. That's why I texted Emma." Another piece clicked into place. Grandma had not just prepared paper. She had prepared witnesses. My father finally spoke. "Emma," he said, voice low, "let's not destroy this family in public." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because of the timing. They had humiliated me in public my whole life. But truth? Truth was supposed to be private. I looked at him, then at my mother, then at Ryan. And I said the line Grandma had given me without knowing it. You did not lose a daughter today. You lost access to the daughter you never valued. My mother's face crumpled then. Not with grief. With rage she could no longer dress up. "You ungrateful little." "Linda," my father warned. But everyone had already heard enough. Mr. Vale placed the documents back in his briefcase. "The sale is void," he said. "The buyer has withdrawn pending legal review. Any further attempt to access the property without Emma's permission will be reported." Ryan grabbed his coat. "This is pathetic," he muttered. But his hands were shaking. My mother stood frozen beside the photo table, surrounded by all the pictures she had chosen to tell her version of the story. And behind her, in the corner of the table, was the one blurry picture of me. Grandma's arm was barely visible around my shoulders. Barely. But there. I picked it up as I walked out. Nobody stopped me. Outside, the rain had turned into a fine mist. Mr. Vale walked beside me to my car. "You did well," he said. I looked down at the photo. "No," I said. "Grandma did." 8. The fallout. The fallout did not come like thunder. Came like doors closing. The buyer withdrew completely within 48 hours. Their solicitor sent a formal letter stating they had relied on false representations from my parents. Claire, the realtor, terminated her involvement and sent me a written apology. She also included copies of every message my mother had sent her. That was how I learned my mother had told people I was mentally fragile, financially desperate, and likely to create conflict unless ignored. Ignored. That word appeared in writing. As if I were not a person. As if I were an obstacle. Mr. Vale filed the necessary notices to secure the property. The locks were changed. Grandma's security footage was copied. The police report was updated after the lockbox was found in my parents' garage with several documents missing. My father returned it himself. He came to Grandma's house on a Thursday afternoon, holding the metal box against his chest like it was evidence from someone else's crime. I opened the door but did not invite him in. For a moment he looked older than I remembered. "Your mother got carried away," he said. That was his apology. Not "I'm sorry." Not "I failed you." Just a soft little blanket thrown over a fire. I looked at the lockbox. "Did she make you take it?" His eyes shifted. I nodded. That answer was enough. He set the box on the porch. "Emma, you know how your mother gets." "Yes," I said. "And I know how silent you get." His face tightened. For once, I did not soften the truth for him. "You watched her call me unstable. You watched Ryan mock me. You watched them sell Grandma's house while I was burying her. And every time you could have told the truth, you chose comfort." He looked down at his shoes. "I didn't want to make things worse. They were worse for me." He had no answer. After he left, I carried the lockbox inside and sat on the kitchen floor to open it. Most of the important papers were still there because Grandma had kept the real copies with Mr. Vale. But at the bottom was another envelope. This one was labeled for the house. Inside were receipts, repairs she had paid for, property taxes, notes about Ryan borrowing money, a handwritten list of items she wanted me to keep, the porch swing, the blue mixing bowl, the hallway mirror, the yellow curtains, and at the bottom one line: "Do not keep anything that makes you feel haunted. A home should hold you, not trap you." I sat there for a long time, because that was Grandma's final gift too. Not just the house. Permission. The family group chat exploded for 3 days. Aunt Carol wrote, "Linda, is this true?" My mother left the chat. Ryan posted, "Hope everyone enjoys watching Emma tear the family apart over money." My cousin Beth replied, "You mean over the house you tried to sell?" Ryan left too. By morning, screenshots had traveled farther than I expected. Not viral in the internet sense, but viral in the family sense, which was sometimes worse. Church friends knew. Neighbors knew. My parents' carefully polished image cracked in places they could not control. My mother tried calling me 17 times in one day. I did not answer. Then she texted, "You embarrassed me at my mother's memorial." I stared at the message for a long time before replying. "You sold her house at her funeral." She did not respond. Ryan's consequences were more practical. The missing documents and the attempted sale scared off 2 people who had been considering investing in his latest business idea. One of them was a family friend who had been at the memorial lunch. He told Ryan, apparently, that he did not invest in men who treated dead grandmothers as loopholes. I heard that from Beth. I did not ask for updates after that. My parents did not go to church for 6 weeks. When they finally returned, people were polite. Polite can be brutal. Nobody shouted. Nobody confronted them. They just stopped asking my mother to organize things. Stopped letting my father handle donations. Stopped pretending not to see the truth. That was the karma my mother could not stand. Not prison. Not ruin. Loss of control. Loss of image. Loss of the room. As for the legal side, Mr. Vale advised me that pressing charges would be possible but complicated. The buyer had withdrawn. The sale had not completed. The missing documents were returned. The footage was clear but not enough for everything my anger wanted. I thought about it for weeks. Some nights I wanted punishment. Real punishment. I wanted my mother to feel the panic I felt seeing that sold sign. I wanted my father to feel the humiliation of being called unstable in front of relatives. I wanted Ryan to lose something he thought was guaranteed. But then I realized something. They already had. They lost access. To the house. To Grandma's story. To me. And for people who believed access was the same thing as love, that was punishment enough. 9. What I learned. I moved into Grandma's house 3 months later. Not because I wanted to live in the past. Because I wanted to decide what the past became. The first week I changed the locks again. Not because I needed to. Because I wanted to hear the sound. Click. A boundary. Click. A new life. Click. No one entering with entitlement disguised as family. I painted the sitting room a soft green. Grandma would have called it brave. Then admitted she liked it. I replaced the old carpet in the hallway, but kept the pencil marks inside the laundry room door. I could not erase them. Some proof is sacred. The porch swing stayed. The yellow curtains did not. I folded them carefully and placed them in a box with Grandma's letters, her recipe cards, and the blurry photo from the memorial table. A home should hold you, not trap you. I repeated that line often. When guilt came. When my mother mailed a birthday card with only her name inside. When my father texted, "Hope you're well," as if we were distant co-workers. When Ryan posted vague quotes online about betrayal and greed. I did not respond. Silence used to be my father's weapon. Now it became my peace. That surprised me most. I thought healing would feel like winning. It did not. It felt like making coffee in Grandma's kitchen on a rainy morning and not bracing for criticism. It felt like leaving my shoes by the door without hearing my mother call me careless. It felt like laughing with Beth on the porch while we ate lemon pie from Bellamy's and admitted the coffee was still terrible. It felt like sleeping through the night. There were still hard days. Sometimes I walked past Grandma's bedroom and forgot, for half a second, that she would not be there folding tissues into the sleeve of her cardigan. Sometimes I found myself reaching for my phone to call her after work. Sometimes I stood in the garden and felt furious all over again that she had to spend her last months preparing documents to protect me from her own daughter. That grief did not disappear. It changed shape. It became responsibility. I started a small scholarship fund in Grandma's name through the hospital where I worked. Nothing grand. Just a yearly award for young people studying pediatric therapy, especially those who had grown up without family support. The first recipient was a girl named Amara who cried when she received the email. She wrote, "I didn't think people like me got picked." I printed that message and placed it beside Grandma's recipe box. Because Grandma would have loved that. My mother eventually asked to meet. She sent the request through Aunt Carol, which told me she still wanted an audience, even an apology. I said no. Not forever, maybe. But no for now. People think forgiveness is a door you owe everyone. I learned it can also be a fence. You can forgive someone in your own heart and still not hand them a key. The house on Maple Ridge Lane is mine now. But more than that, my life is mine. My name is on the deed. My name is on the mailbox. My name is on the electric bill, the insurance papers, the garden tools in the shed. And every time I see it written somewhere, I think of Grandma. The truth was filed before the lies began. That was her last act of love. She knew my family would call me selfish. She knew they would call me unstable. She knew they would try to make me beg for something that already belonged to me. So she left proof. Not because proof makes betrayal painless. It does not. But proof stops betrayal from becoming history. And if there is one thing I learned from losing the woman who loved me best, it is this. Do not waste your whole life trying to be believed by people who benefit from misunderstanding you. Sometimes the receipt is not for them. Sometimes it is for you. So when the day comes and they point at you with clean hands and dirty motives, you can stand there quietly, open the folder, and let the paper remember what they hoped everyone would forget. 10. Final message. If this story reminded you of someone who only called you family when they wanted access to your money, your home, your silence, or your forgiveness, I hope you remember this. Love does not require you to erase the truth. Sometimes the people who call you dramatic are simply afraid you kept receipts. And sometimes the strongest revenge is not screaming, chasing, or begging. It is standing still while the proof speaks. If this story moved you, subscribe to this channel. Every week we share emotional stories of betrayal, family secrets, public exposure, hidden documents, legal karma, and the kind of justice that arrives when someone finally stops staying silent.